Today I want to give you the ultimate guide to customizing your website with CSS Hero. But before we get started with that, let me give you a quick introduction to CSS. What is CSS? It's Cascading Style Sheets. Basically, this is a programming language that allows you to make changes to your entire website. So you change one thing and it will affect the entire website. And the reason they call it cascading style sheets is because if I add a style to, say, the body of the website, that style cascades down to all of the sub-items within the website. But I can also specify a different item or a different style to go with an element. Now, I'm using the word element here because when you change one thing in CSS, you're not just changing an item like a phrase, you're changing an element, which is like all of the titles in the website. Then all of the titles will change, not just the one title that you're working on. And that makes it great because you can change one thing and it'll affect all 100 or 1,000 of the posts in your website. You don't have to go in and individually change each and every one. Now you could get that granular, but you don't have to. You can make one change and it will cascade throughout the website. So that's a quick overview to CSS, and let's take a look at how we use CSS Hero to make these changes on our website. Okay, I'm here on my test website and I've got CSS Hero, the plugin. It's installed, it's activated. I've activated my license, and I'm also logged into the website. And because I'm logged in, I have this little blue lightning bolt, and if I hover over that, it'll tell me that this is CSS Hero. So just clicking on that will start the Hero interface. Okay, and then I've got this little toolbar on this side. So whenever you want to make a change to the styles in your website, all you have to do is click on these little crosshairs and then select the item that you want to change. Okay, so I'm going to click on the crosshairs and I'm going to click on this post title. Now, if you caught my quick introduction to CSS, you know that if we change this item, the site body, it will affect the entire website and the changes will cascade down to each of these elements. But we can also come in here and change just this element, the title links, and it will affect all of the title links within this post, or I'm sorry, within this website. So let me do that right now. Let me show you what we can do with fonts. To change the font properties, we're going to come here to the text item. It's the top of the list and probably the one you're going to use the most. So when I click on that, you can see that I can change the color. So I'll just click on this color block here, and sometimes you can't see the colors here, so I have to click inside here to get these colors. Then I can drag this slider down and I can find the color that I want. I like this nice navy blue. And you can also see that this is a live preview. So the changes that I'm making here appear right here as a live preview. So I can know exactly what my changes will look like on my website. I'd like to change the font family. So in addition to your standard fonts like Arial and Helvetica, CSS Hero goes to Google Fonts and pulls in hundreds of different options for fonts. So I'm just going to scroll through a few of these, and let's choose one that's kind of a fun font. I like this font. It's kind of bold and kind of fun. So let's go with that font. Now, oftentimes when you change the font family, you might want to also adjust the font size. So you might want to make it bigger or smaller. So for me, that looks pretty good. And these are the basic three things that you want to change: the color, the font family, and the font size. Now down here there are multiple options. These are a little more advanced, but I can walk you through those. So the font weight is like bold. You got normal, bold, bolder, and lighter. That will just adjust how strong the font is. Font style is regular or italics. Text decoration, you can add an underline, a strike through, or a line above. So this is something that you might want to play with. Text transform is pretty neat. No matter what you've typed for this text, you can transform it to be all uppercase, title case, or even lowercase. And mind you, we're not changing the text here, we're just transforming it with CSS. And we can do some other things like changing the text alignment. And you'll see something really special happens if I try to center this. This little hero tip pops up, and it teaches you a little bit about CSS to say, to make the text align property work, you might have to set this element's display property to block. Do you want me to help you? I promise to highlight with a red border the option to select. Okay, so basically what this is saying is some CSS rules need to work with other rules in order to display properly. Okay, so I'm just going to click OK, and this is going to jump me to another section. We're no longer in the text section, we're in the extra section. And instead of this being inline, I need to select block. And you can see the live preview changes. Okay, so that's all I needed to do for that one. I can come back out of that. I can go back to text and pick up where I left off. Line height is the spacing between the lines, and in general you want about 1.3 to 1.5 times the font size. So this is a little bit small now that I've increased this font size, so I might just increase that, bump it up just a little bit. Okay, you can do text indenting, word spacing, letter spacing, adding a text shadow, and doing some other fancy things. We're not going to go through all those options, but you can play with those and see how they look. When I'm happy with the changes that I've made, I'm just going to click Save. Okay, and that was 1/5 of our ultimate guide to customizing your website. We went ahead and changed this font. I want to teach you how to do something else that will be very useful to you, and that's changing the background of your website. So we're going to come up here to the crosshairs, and we're going to choose this main background section. Okay, and that's called the main contents area. Whenever I move my mouse here, you can see the blue highlighting to let you know what we're going to be affecting. Okay, and this time we're going to go to the background tab, and let's just give it a background color. So I'm going to click up here in the color, and you can see that I could choose my color again, but actually I have down here there's the colors in use, and it gives me that blue that I just used for the font, and I want to use that color again. This will create great shortcuts for all the colors that you choose, and it'll help you keep your colors the same throughout the website without having to copy this color code. Now suppose instead of a background color I wanted to do a gradient. Actually that gradient is here under image, and I'm not sure why it's there rather than being under color, but if I click on gradient I'm going to get two colors. And so I can choose the first color, maybe I want to use that blue, and I can choose the second color, and I'm going to have to manually choose a different blue. Okay, and now I can choose the orientation. So do I want it to go from left to right, right to left, top to bottom? Okay, maybe something like that. So you can see that I've got the light blue on the top, and as I scroll down the page, it's a rather long page, but you can see that by the bottom of that page, it's the dark blue. Okay, so that's kind of a nice effect. And that's your gradient. Now that I'm thinking about why the gradient is here under background image, I think it's because you can only have one of these two. You can either have an image or a gradient, but you cannot have both. I just had a client that requested both a gradient and a background image, and I had to find another way to do that. Okay, so instead of the gradient, let me try an image. And I'm going to pop over here, and I've got this image. So I'm just going to drag that onto this box. I'm going to use the full size of the image, so make sure the full size is checked, and I'm going to use that as the background. Okay, now what you're seeing now is I've got the image here, and it's repeating. So you can't see the whole image, but just based on what you can see, you know that it's repeating vertically, and it's also repeating horizontally. That's not as clear. But that's because this background repeat property is set. Okay, so you can repeat X, which means horizontally. You can repeat Y, which is vertically, or you can choose no repeat. And you'll just get that one image. Okay, let's choose no repeat for now, and I'll show you some of these other options here. Background attachment. You've got two options here. You could either have it as scroll, which means the background will scroll with the page, and there it goes. Or you can choose fixed. And fixed will set that image and set it all the way in the corner there, and when you scroll, it will not move. So that's kind of a nice effect that you might want to choose for that. Okay, this may be how some websites do parallax scrolling effect. Okay, there's another thing called background size, and that's where we can choose cover or constrain. Cover just kind of zooms it out and makes it fill every space. Contain kind of contains the picture. In this case, it's the vertical distance that is the constraining element. So it's kind of constrained in there. Or you can choose the default, which is auto. Okay, I'm actually going to go back to my gradient. Okay, so I like those changes. I'm going to click Save. Okay, so these are two of the most common things that you're going to change. You're going to change fonts, and you're also going to change backgrounds. I want to pause for a moment and talk a little bit more about CSS. All right, in CSS, we have something called the box model. And that basically says that everything on the websites come in a box. Okay, and in my illustration here, the box is the blue box, and I've got some margin. Margin is the space around the box that you put in there, and you've got some padding. Padding is the space on the inside of the box between that and the content. So if you can imagine in this box, the blue box is the box, the green box is my content, and I've got margin around the box and padding inside the box. Okay, that concept is a little bit hard to grasp, but let's jump into CSS Hero and actually add some style to a box, and you'll be able to see exactly what I mean. Okay, I'm going to show you one of my favorite plugins, which is called Gravity Forms. They make excellent forms for your WordPress site. So let me scroll up here a little bit. And I'm going to style this gravity form. Okay, so I'm going to click on the crosshairs, and I'm going to come here. I'm going to click on this title, and maybe I want to choose the form title and adjust the text. Choose the color. I'm going to come here and use the same color I used before. And for the font family, you'll notice that this font that I used earlier in this video is locked in at the top, so I can choose that very easily. Okay, and now that's a little bit small because the font is bold, so I'm going to increase this to about 36 points. Okay, now that looks good, so I'm going to save that change. Now, just as a matter of review, I'm going to click on the crosshairs again on this box. This time I'm not going to choose this topmost item. As I scroll down through the list, I'm able to see different items within this this listing, right? All the way down to the site body, but the one that I want to choose is GForm1 form. And you can see that blue outline around the entire form. So let me pick this one, and let me give this a background color so you can begin to see what's happening on the site. Okay, maybe just a nice light blue. Okay, so that's my background, but you can see this isn't ideal because the text is right up against the edge here. So I'm going to need what, margin or padding? Right, I'm going to need some padding because padding is on the inside of the box while margin is on the outside. So I'm going to click on padding, and I'm going to give this 20 pixels all around. Okay, and you can see padding is on the inside and margin is around the outside, right? So let me also give this a margin, and let's give it just 10 pixels of margin. All around that, and let me save that. Okay, are you seeing how our styling is coming together? Let's do a little bit more with this box here. So I'm going to once again click on the crosshairs. I could click on anything within this form. I just won't choose the topmost item. I'm going to choose this one. And this time, let's give it a border. Adding borders to your boxes is something we do a lot. Okay, so I'm just going to change the border width. Maybe make it 7 pixels. Okay, I've got some styles here, like I could do this. But I tend to like a solid line. Okay, and these first two settings will change the borders on all sides. You could also change them individually. So you could do the top, do the right, do the bottom, do the left. Okay, but I choose to just do these top two options, which affect all the borders. Okay, and then now let's do a border radius. And you can see that's just the rounding of the corners. So here again, the top one does all the corners, or you could choose just maybe the top left and the bottom right. Okay, let me save that. So you can see I've just done the rounding on the top left and the bottom right. And that gives it kind of an interesting style. Okay, let me go back in here. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pull those off. And I'm just going to round all of the corners equally. Don't want to round them too much, but about there looks good. Okay, so for our box, we've done a background, we've done a border, the border radius, margin, and padding. Okay, but because this is a box, we can also define its size. So let's do that. Right now the width is 627 pixels, but let's decrease that down a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, we could even change the height, but that could get kind of weird. So we won't touch that. Now I'm going to show you some of the advanced boxed items under Extra. So we could do a box shadow, and these come out kind of interesting sometimes. Let's try a 3D effect. Okay, so we've got some 3D effect going on. I don't think I need too much styling. We don't want to go overboard here. But one thing I want to show you is the float. Float tells this box how to behave. So by default, it's just the box is just staying there. And if you scroll down a little bit, I have some text here. And the text comes after the box. Well, if I tell this box to float to the left, I'm also allowing the text to float to the right, or to flow in on the right of the box. So let me choose that and let's see how that works. Okay, so by floating this box left, I've allowed the text to go on the right, and vice versa. If I float the box right, I allow the text to go on the left. Okay. This is something you might want to do as you're designing your web pages. Okay, so I'm going to save this change. And so this is how my post with the gravity form looks now. You can see that it's much different from when we started. Let me take a moment to show you a couple of the more advanced features in CSS Hero. Okay, this here is a link that will take us to this post. So let me show you an advanced option. Let me click on that and go back to the title link. Up here, we have a little arrow pointing at this item. And this tells me, especially because it's a link, I could have a normal, a hover, an active, and a visited. Okay, and this means, what hover means is whenever I hover my mouse over this item, we can change it a little bit. We can adjust the styling and different things. Okay, active. This is sometimes used on the menu of your website, so you know what page you're on. That's the active link. And visited, you'll see this on web pages that you visit often. And as you click through links, the links will change colors. And that usually tells you that you visited those pages already. So we can affect all of these changes just by choosing one of these options. So now we're working with the hover attribute. And for the text, I'm going to go ahead and change the color to red. Now this is just for illustration because I would never actually do this. And I'm going to add an underline. Okay, let me just save that. Okay, so now when I hover my mouse, the color changes to red and there's an underline. That's kind of a helpful thing. If you have links that don't have an underline style, you may want to add that when people hover over it so they know it's clickable. I wouldn't do this dramatic color change, but adding that line underneath really helps people to know what's clickable and what's not. Let me show you a couple more advanced features. So we've learned that when you click on that crosshair, you can now choose items to edit. Well, sometimes you have a hard time finding the item to edit. Like if I wanted to edit this whole sidebar background, I'm not sure which part I'm supposed to click on. And so even if I clicked on one and kind of scrolled through the list, I'm still not sure what which one of these I would have to choose to affect the entire sidebar. Okay, and in fact, none of these will affect the entire sidebar. So what I need to do is I need to come up here to this option, and this will pop up all of the selectable items. And in fact, I think maybe this item is what I would want to adjust if I wanted to change something in the whole sidebar. And after making those changes, if I wanted to adjust something up here, I would have to find this property. There it is. It's called the masthead area. And go ahead and change that one. And you can see that it's a little bit strange because there's a lot of margin, right? If it was padding, the color would be extended, but because it's margin, the colors are not coming out there. Okay, so actually there may be one other element, like this element here, that might affect the whole thing. And some of it, there we go, that's the one I actually wanted. So some of this will take a little bit of trial and error. Okay, so let me cancel out of that. Now, I made this change here, but I really don't want that change. I have good news for you. This icon here, the two arrows going in a circle, is your history. So this is what I have active at the top, but I can roll back in my history. So that was the site before I changed that color. So what I can do is I can now activate that saved change, and it will revert back to this. So that history item is really helpful as you're making changes, and sometimes you won't get it right and you want to roll back to a previous version. You can very easily view and activate previous edits to your CSS. And when all else fails, you have this tools here. You can reset everything to the theme's default. So that will undo every single change that you've made. So use this one with caution. Okay. I want to show you one other advanced feature, and that's this one. It's the responsive menu. So I can choose a desktop, a tablet, or a mobile phone. Many themes change their layout based on what size the screen is. And you can see that we've done that here, so that this all changes with the screen size. And you can see that as we've changed to the mobile phone version, this contact form, we made it so wide that it doesn't fit on the phone anymore. So what we can do is we can come in here, click on our crosshairs, click back on that form, and that was the GForm1 form, and we can change the size, and this time we can make it pull back that size and make sure that it fits within our screen size. Okay, and when we save this, you can see that there's a phone here. That means this is only going to affect the phone size of the website. So let's save that. If we were being thorough, I would change this font and make this font smaller. Maybe this font smaller as well, because they don't need to be as big on the mobile phone. And when I come back to the normal size, you can see that the form has returned to its original size. So the change we made here on the phone size only affects the phone. Okay, so that's pretty cool that you can not only change the CSS for your desktop version, but you can also change it for tablets and mobile phones. And if your site has tablet and mobile phone versions, it's a best practice to go through the site and go ahead and see how the site looks on all three versions as you make your changes. Because sometimes a change that you make in one version of the site will affect the others. Okay, so this has been the ultimate guide to styling your website with CSS Hero. We learned how to adjust the fonts, colors, size, spacing. We learned how to do backgrounds, everything from colors to gradients and images. We learned about the CSS box model and how we can adjust the different boxes of the website. Now, as we were going through this, you probably realize a working knowledge of CSS really helps you make the changes. CSS Hero does a great job of giving us a visual interface to make the changes, but having a working knowledge of CSS really helps you understand what you're doing and why you're doing things and how the changes are going to affect the website. So I highly recommend that you get this plugin, play around with it, see what the changes do, but begin to learn CSS. Thanks for watching this video. We hope you learned something about styling your website with CSS. If you're planning on purchasing this plugin for yourself, we ask kindly that you use our affiliate link. It helps us generate some income so we can continue to create great content for you. Thanks a lot, mahalo, and God bless you.